Let's check out the guitar Jordy got. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. So this one's part of my forwarding service. Somebody outside the USA wanted something that a shop inside the USA would not sell to them, so I'm here to help, and we get to document a cool model. We just recently talked about this one. It's an early Les Paul classic. But what makes me excited about this one to document is the fact that, there you go, it's proof for you. They did first make these in 1989. This is one of the first 30 Les Paul classics made. And when he first sent those emails, I was kind of jealous because he found one that has like this nice plain top, flame top configuration. This is a really cool example. But just as a quick recap, if you missed the last episode, the Les Paul Classic is a turning point within Gibson's history. This is before the official custom shop opens in late 1993. We just recently documented an early R9 that you can check out in this episode. But after Henry J and his investors take over the company in 1986 from Norland Industries, they kind of had a couple of years of some weird super strat-like models. But with Slash coming around and Les Pauls becoming more popular, they wanted to offer something that was a little more high-end, and the Classic was the answer to that. This was essentially a 1960 reissue. They even have 1960 on our pickguard there for quite a few years. But the other cool thing about the 89 Classics is they do have a slightly different headstock shape. They were really trying new things. This looks very 50s, so that's pretty cool. At introduction, a Classic ranked above a Standard, but just slightly below the full-on Les Paul reissue, and then the custom shop comes along, they make those reissues a little bit more accurate, but we still don't have the long neck tenons or anything like that. But I've been getting the question, when does the ranking change? Because in the current lineup, a Classic ranks below a Standard. In my opinion, it's when the ABR1 bridge changes to a Nashville style. And if I remember correctly, that's somewhere in like the early 2000s for the Classic model. But the thing to know about the most valuable Classics, 1989, 1990, 1991, and early 92, is the fact that they have the Les Paul model silkscreen on it instead of it saying Les Paul Classic. Because these things were so good, unscrupulous dealers would change out the Classic truss rod cover and the pickguard, and then sell these as full-on reissues, because at the time, none would be the wiser. And this was kind of a cool find in the case. You don't find the original paperwork too often, so this one was sold in 1990, and you can see the dealer's information there. But look at that, it's just called the Les Paul Classic 1960 reissue, according to them. But to learn more about this one, let's go ahead and throw it on the workbench to take a look at its parts and specs before we send it on to Jordy. Inside the 1989 Classic, let's go ahead and verify this for him. We had already saw the shop's photos, and he was kind of weirded out by these pickups, because it says RLC or something like that on the back of the neck, and then what looks like a faded version of that as well. So he was comparing this against my 1990 video, and noticed that the markings in the neck pickup weren't exactly the same. You gotta remember, this is late 1989, and what we documented was in 1990. There's going to be some differentiations between the runs. So this one, I couldn't quite read what it said, but now that I have it in person, it says faded VSB for vintage sunburst. Faded referring to not like super ultra red bursted color. And then we don't have anything in the bridge pickup cavity. But I thought seeing all that glue in here was kind of funny. But originally the Classic comes with the 496R 500T pickup set, and you might think this looks a little bit different. This is what the earliest versions of those looked like. This is before the Gibson USA base plate, which gets introduced, late 92, early 93-ish. People mistakenly sell these as Tim Shaw's all the time, but the big thing to look for are the large base plate screws. That's how you know it's not a Shaw. However, I highly doubt that the markings are correct, and the lead length on this bridge pickup is suspiciously long. It's possible this one was restored at some point, but it is what I would consider an error-correct set. But we can verify that with the readings. Bridge 13.8, so that's about correct for a 500T, and our neck at 8.59 is correct for a 496R. So yeah, I don't have any qualms about that, at least being an original error-correct set. Now the bridge and tailpiece, got kind of a cool butterfly-like pattern right there. The ABR1 is mounted historically, just with a post in the body. And this one has a wire retainer on it, but I noticed it was on upside down, so I'm going to fix that. If you're ever confused, look at the notches. The size should correlate with the string. But historically, the screws face this way on an ABR1 bridge. A Nashville is the opposite. They face this way. Then the tailpiece on this one looks like so. And I had to fix our knobs a little bit. These two instantly fell off when I turned the guitar upside down, but they're good now. They stay on, no worries. Here's a look at that pickguard. The 1960 can wear off. So just because it's not obvious that that's on there, take a closer look before you say it's been replaced. And this thing was filthy. Cleaning the guitar, unfortunately, is not part of my forwarding service. However, it is available for an additional fee, but he said he would clean it himself. But this one was just too dirty to let it go. So I did a quick pump polish wipe down, and it's looking a lot better. That top is looking active. But this is a beautiful two-piece plain top with a mahogany body, mahogany neck, and rosewood fretboard. The frets are pretty worn on this example. It was definitely played quite a bit, but I conditioned this board, so it's actually looking really good now. I always love the inlays on these early classics. They used a much different material than the regular standards, but it's not quite what they use today on the historic reissues. They just kind of have a nice silver pearly look to them, but just a little bit green before they go super snot green. And the green coloring actually comes from the glue that they use to adhere it to the fretboard. So if you ever pop one of these things off, you'll see that it's just the white color. We've got that 24 3/4 inch scale with 12-inch fretboard radius, with about a 1.7-inch nut width, increasing to 2.08 at the 12. Really skinny 0.78 first fret neck depth. And holy cow, 0.85 by the 12th. There's a look at that neck, first fret and 12th fret. When they said they were going for 1960 reissue specs, they made that neck as thin as they possibly could. Now our headstock. It pains me whenever I see this because this originally had the vintage style tuners. You can see that on my 1990. You see how this one does not have any metal washers around it? Someone has replaced the tuners on these, probably because the originals went out. That's pretty common. But when you do this, you're impressing the headstock. So even if you do use a conversion bushing to go back, you'll always be able to tell. Now that I have this in person, I can tell there's been at least 3 sets on here because we kind of have a semi-watt conversion one right here that utilizes the larger base right here to fill up some of the flub, but yet they try to give you the smaller shaft. But do you see what's happened here? They've actually had to ream out a different hole, so it's more of like an oval shape hole right now. So as long as you're okay with the tuners that are currently on it, you're all right. But this is exactly what I'm talking about when they ream the headstock. But you know what? Those tuners were probably replaced fairly recently because we don't have too much of an impression from those being screwed down to the face of the headstock for very long. So I'm sure you'd see a similar oblong hole shape on all of these. But thankfully, there's at least a set of tuners that currently fits it, so we're in the clear. We can see our Gibson logo and Les Paul model decal. You have a little bit of lifting occurring around the finish. That's pretty common in the late 80s, early 90s. Very apparent on the model. And the truss rod appears to be in good shape with our classic truss rod cover. Moving on to the back, you can tell the mahogany is a much lighter color as compared to the neck because this is the exact same finish, it just looks different due to the underlying wood color. But we've got some buckle worming there, and just lots of nicks and dings. This was a well-used guitar. But looking inside our pot cavity, it's kind of cool. It's like one of the first weeks of 1990, so you just have 900 and then whatever the cover digit is. 1989 might be the official first year for the classic. But you have to remember, these are very late 89s. I mean, here we are, pot code of the 48th week of 89, and this other one matches too. The bridge pickup we can definitely say has at least been in and out. This one could go either way, but that looks like it's been in and out to me as well. Which is not uncommon at all on a player's grade model like this, that somebody would want to experiment around with some other pickups at some point in time. But an error correct set is present. I found this kind of cool. There's 2 chips in the lacquer right on the thin binding in the cutaway, so you can see the maple cap exposed. And just some light wear around the edges. Lots of cracking within the binding. And you've got some finish checking / cracks within the binding up there. Very common. Kind of a nasty gouge on the side there. The back of the neck is, all things considered, relatively clean. Nice and glassy now that it's been cleaned. There's the backside of the replaced Kluson Deluxe tuners. And our cool 9030 serial. So what makes this look so strange is the fact that there's only 3 digits right here before they moved on to the typical 4. But why 1989s are desirable to collectors is because you've got the leading 9 here, so it looks like a 59 reissue. Although, if we're being real here, if this is meant to be the 1960, technically the 0 leading one would be more desirable, but it's just fun for bragging rights to have one of the 89 made ones. And a quick blacklight test just to protect him. Yeah, everything looks good on this one. Top glows the way I would expect, as do the plastics. Base of the headstock, nice and even. Backside of the neck, also looking good, which is great because usually you see at least a little bit of clear coat wear on the neck. That's why it's so nice and glossy smooth. And then just minor sweat absorption back here. But you can see some of the chips in the finish, like right here and over here. All said and done, this one weighs 9 pounds, 11.2 ounces. So let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how a first year example sounds. that neck pickup is just really attacking. The bridge pickup is quite dark sounding. I suppose compressed is a good way to say it. Here it is with the pickups adjusted. Yeah, that helped tame that neck pickup just a little bit. Gotta say, this thing actually sounds really good. I like So there we go, an absolutely gorgeous 1989 Gibson Les Paul Classic, the very first year of these things. What are my final thoughts? I really like that bridge pickup. It has a nice raunchiness to it that's very compressed, not too over the top, exactly what we're looking for in an early classic. It's very common for people to replace these pickups because they're a little bit too bright and attacking and they want something more vintage, but hey, this was just a great example. Love the way that the wood grain's dancing now here in the light. So a little bit more about Jordy, the one who's having me forward this to him. He's actually dedicating a search to name all the Les Paul Classic models, and I think he wants to own them as well. I've got to say, I mean, this might not be collector's condition in my opinion, mainly due to the reamed out headstock and the giant ding over here. But it's a great example of a 98 Classic, and there's only so many of those to go around, so I think he's going to be very happy with this one. But thank you for trusting me to forward this on to you and getting to document it in the process. And viewers, I hope you enjoy your newfound guitar knowledge. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day. And you might even enjoy this next one.